I told you a few things yesterday. I left you with a question yesterday, which someone asked, which I'll get to. But I want to just show you a couple of Rashis where he says what I said, so you'll see it there, and then I'll go back to the question I left you with yesterday. If you look on page 317, I told you that the form of the words in the vow that Jacob took, the form of the words is if A and B and C and D and E and F, period. That's the way it is in Hebrew. All the phrases are joined by vav. All the vavs, almost 99.9% of the time means and just says if A and B and C and D and E and F, period. There's no then, because there isn't any then in biblical Hebrew. So I told you that you have to read it and figure out where the then belongs. And the sense of the vow is, if God will do these things for me, then I will do these things for him. So at each clause you should ask, is this something that God is doing for me, or is this something that I'm offering to do for God? So, and then you can figure out where the then might be. And we said there are only two possibilities. The phrase, Hashem will be a God to me, that phrase could go either way, either side of the then, but the other ones before are clearly things that God is doing for him. In other words, afterwards are clearly things that he's doing for God. So that's the only two possibilities. Now you see Rashi on page 317, it's verse 22, his first comment right in the middle of the Rashi. And the quotation from this translation is, then this stone. Rashi says, so should you explain this vav. The vav of v'ha'evan. This vav you should explain as then. And Rashi now gives you the paraphrase. If he will do these things I mentioned for me, then I too will do this. So that's where the shift takes place. But Rashi's telling you that this vav means then, which means that this is an ambiguity. If you have a verse that says if A and B, period, then you know the then belongs between the A and the B. It means if A, then B. But if you have more than two, then there's an ambiguity, and you have to figure out where it belongs. Okay, so I explained that to you. Now, the next Rashi follows this out, because the verse says only, this stone which I have set as a pillar shall become a house of God. Shall? Who? When? How? It shall become. So Rashi says, the implication is, this stone which I have set up as a pillar shall become a house of God. This is to be understood as Onkelos renders it. He quotes the Aramaic from the Aramaic translation of Onkelos. I will worship upon it before God. Meaning, I'll make it into a house of God by myself performing the worship there. Won't advertise and look for investors and, build. Maybe after my death it'll be inaugurated. No, I'll make it happen right away by my own action. And he did so. Upon his return from Padan Aram, when God said to him, go to Beisel, what is said there? And Jacob set up a pillar, and he poured a libation on it of oil to inaugurate it, and he prayed there to God. So this is how you have to understand this stone will become, because he's now promising what he will do for God. So he can't be just predicting that this will become a monument. He's got to be saying that he's going to do it. Otherwise, it doesn't fit the sense of the vow. Now, Rashi's concerned in verse 20 with part of what was asked yesterday, but not directly. We'll have to come to what was asked yesterday in a minute. He says, if God will be with me, and he will guide me in this way that I am going. He will give me bread to eat, or food to eat, clothes to wear. I will return in peace to my father's house. Now, where's he getting these things from? So, it was asked yesterday, didn't God promise him some of these things? God, well, you think promised, at least he said it in the dream. He said in verse 15, behold, I'm with you, I will guide you wherever you go, I'll return to the soil, for I will not forsake you till I have done what I have spoken to you. So there is some overlap between the two of them, explicitly. And the question that was raised is, if God already told them this is going to happen, why did he say if? Rashi's worried about the rest of the overlap. It would be peculiar for Yaakov to start citing things that he was told and repeat them over again and say if they happen and make that the source of his vow, and then add in a few things, free-willed, a few extras, by the way, some bonuses also that I would like. The relationship to the previous statement, verse 15, would then become ambiguous, would not be clear how he's relating to the verse. Rashi wants to see that everything that he puts into the vow comes from verse 15. So that requires some work, because in 15 it doesn't mention food, doesn't mention clothes. So Rashi wants you to see that the vocabulary of 15 fits these specific ideas. So now, take a look at verse 20 on page 316. If God will be with me, Rashi says, with me means if he will keep for me these promises. Here Rashi uses the word promises. Then he promised me, now what? To be with me, as it says, I'll be with you. And will guard me, as he says to him, I will guard you wherever you go. There it's word for word. He will give me food to eat, as I translate it. Where did he say that? So Rashi says, because in the verse of 15 it says, I will not abandon you. I will not forsake you. And one who seeks food, who has nothing to eat, is called forsaken. As it says, Lo reisi tzadik ne'ezav, I have not seen a righteous person forsaken, v'zar mavakesh lochem, and his offspring is seeking food. So to be abandoned is associated with seeking food, and therefore Rashi says that that's where in the what he calls the promise of God to Jacob in 15, it indicates what he says here, that he should have food. Now, the answer to the question, how can he say if about something which God states to him will happen, is this. Maimonides says this in the introduction to the Mishnah. When God makes a statement about future events, what will happen, you can divide those statements into 4 categories. It depends upon whether what is stated to happen is something that's good or bad. And you can also distinguish whether what's stated to happen is stated to happen to the one God is speaking to, or no, God is speaking to A, is telling A this was going to happen to B. And usually that means that A tells B that's going to happen to B. So you have 4 categories. Good to the person himself, good to others, bad to the person himself, and bad to others. Only 1 out of the 4 is guaranteed. And that's where God states that something good will happen to others. Not the person being spoken to, but to others. Under those conditions, if God says it's going to happen, it has to happen. And this is very important because, well, let me just explain. So, if it's something bad to happen, Maimonides tells us we should understand it as a warning. You're in a bad situation. You're not behaving well. This is what you risk. If you keep it up, this is what can happen. So it's not an absolute declaration that will happen. It's in the nature of a warning. that covers 2 out of 4, whether it's bad for the person himself or bad for others. If their behavior changes, it could very well avoid that statement about the future. So that's not meant to be true no matter what. What about good things? So if it's a good thing for an individual, it depends upon his earning it. It's like an offered bonus. If you do well enough, this is what you will earn. It's not a statement of what will happen. And I'll show you that that's true because these promises, in other words, it means the promises are conditional. There's fine print at the back of the contract, Read all the way to the back and get out your magnifying glass and say, this depends upon how well you do and whether you deserve it or not. That's always written at the back of the contract when a person is being told good things that will happen to him. There's actually a verse which says this pretty clearly. If you take a look, page 363, this is chapter 32, verse 10. This is 20 years later when he's coming back to the land of Israel. And Jacob is afraid of meeting Esau. He's afraid of the confrontation. And he prays for help. So Jacob said, God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, Hashem was said to me, return to your land and to your birthplace, and I will do good to you. I have been diminished by all the kindnesses and by all the truth that you have done, your servant. Diminished. Not bad. In Hebrew, it means I became small. I've become small. You did so much kindness and so much truth to me already that I become diminished. Shorter? He lost height? Does happen to some older people that do get shorter. It's probably not what he means, right? What could he mean by saying of all the kindnesses and all the truth? And by the way, he has not yet returned in peace to his father's house. So that promise he hasn't gotten yet. So here the understanding is, I made promises to you, but you have to earn them. Well, earnings are parallel to what you've accomplished. No, by what you do well, you build up a certain credit, and when I pay you, you're using up that credit. Jacob says, I don't know where I stand. Am I in the black or am I in the red? Am I overspending my allowance? I have no idea. I know that all of what you've done for me has diminished my credit. I don't know how small it's gotten. So that being the case over here, and here he pleads for help for things that God promised him over where we are. So that being the case, the explanation for that is quite is supported by that verse over there. So when he says if over here, Jacob says to God, I know you promised me these things, but I know they depend upon my earning them. I don't know if I'm going to earn them. I don't know if they're really going to happen. So I say, if they really happen, so if I do manage to earn them and they really happen, then these are the things that I will do. As we said yesterday, the if here is in the special sense of, if you do these things and thereby keep me alive and thereby enable me to come back to this place, then I will do these things, because if not, I won't be able to. It's not a threat, and it's not a 50-50 deal. You know, if you do for me, I'll do for you, and if you don't do for me, I won't do for you, I'll go to the beach. He's going to be dead. He can't make this stone into a house of worship if he's trapped in Haran, he can never come back, or if he dies on the way, then it won't happen. So it's not a trade-off. It's simply, if you benefit me in these ways, then this is what I will do. Okay? Fine. Let's go on. Yeah, question? Yeah.
So, I mean, when we see the way Hashem presented this protection and blessings that will come upon Yaakov. Then when Yaakov phrases his way that blessing came to him, seems, so to speak, perhaps he makes it in his own words, like kind of says like specific things, like I'm going to return to my father's home, like, because in Hashem says to the soil, like I will take you back to the soil. Like there's a few things that, of course somehow the person also takes.
That's an interesting point. He does change the vocabulary a couple of times. And you're saying that that could very well be true. In other words, he's saying about it what it means to him. God says, I'll bring you back to the soil. And Jacob says, for me, that means going back to my father's house. That's the part of in it that I appreciate, the part in it that I recognize as a benefit to me. That's a good observation. He could come back to the soil, maybe his parents won't be alive. He wants to see his parents. In fact, he doesn't get to see his mother. Anyway, I think it's a good observation, yeah. Okay, now let's see how you feel about this. We're on page 317, the beginning of chapter 29. Vayisa Yaakov Raglov. So Jacob, and of course the so is put in by the translator, Jacob lifted his feet and went toward the land of the Easterners, to the Easterners. How does that verse strike you?
Not referring to pretty much his mother's house the way that they would before. They just called them the Easterners.
Sorry, I'm not getting it. Say it again.
Before they would always refer to him as Laban's house or Rachel's family, but now they're just calling them the Easterners.
Oh, okay. That's all right. I think that's important. And Rashi doesn't mention it. Well, he wants to get the spirit of it. So what do you make out of it? In other words, instead of saying going to Lavan, his mother's brother, and so forth, it says the land of the Easterners. There's a certain grandiosity about that. Where are you going? To New Delhi. Where are you going? To the east. Oh, that includes Thailand, and includes China, and includes, India's there also. And of the billion people in India, one city is New Delhi. That's true. But, the world's my pie. It's all in my pocket. Now what does it mean he picked up his feet? What does that mean? This is clearly poetry. When you walk, you typically pick up your feet, You tell kids, don't scuff your shoes on the floor, you wear out your shoes. Pick up your feet! And here, the whole spirit is a spirit of strength, of positivity, of confidence, of happiness, which he didn't have before. When he left before, it says, he left and he went, right? So what you see here is that the Torah will use vocabulary to describe a mood. What I told you at the beginning of this series, any literary sensitivity that you feel is natural is appropriate to try. There may be a reason not to use it in a particular way, in a particular place, but you shouldn't just dismiss it as, well, that's just my own feelings, the text wouldn't be dealing with that. No, it's definitely legitimate to try, yeah.
I remember, I'm going to butcher this, but later on when Moses arrives before the burning bush, there's this passage of take off your shoes, right? So there's this image of stepping in a holy place. Earlier he had here, if he'd known, he wouldn't have been here. Does lifting his feet maybe is the sense that he's leaving this holy place, and also more broadly, he's leaving Israel, and there's this sense that he's departing from that safety and that special location which you've noted to us.
I don't know. If you're going with strength, with positivity, with a certain confidence, it wouldn't be caused by leaving a holy place. It wouldn't be caused by leaving the land of Israel. Leaving the land of Israel is a giant step down. But look at Rashi. Look at Rashi on verse 1. So Jacob lifted his feet. Once he was imparted good tidings that he was assured of being guarded. His heart lifted his feet, and it became easy to walk. Now, I just want to point out, Rashi ends with, thus is explained in Bereshis Rabbah, that Bereshis Rabbah was the Midrash. But here, he doesn't say that it's a Midrashic comment and not a literal comment. He doesn't say that this is not Pshuto. So it means the Midrash sometimes can say things which is also Pshat. Don't be fooled by the name of the literature, Midrash, that say that it's only Drush and it's not Pshat. Rashi often quotes Midrashim, because he said his judgment is that in this case, what the Midrash says is in fact pshat in the pasuk. To the extent that there are places where the Midrash or the Gemara will make a comment, let's say 3 comments about 3 coordinated places, and Rashi will bring 2 out of the 3 and not the third, because he feels that the rabbinic source 2 out of the 3 really is pshat, and 1 out of the 3 is not pshat. As I told you at the beginning, that doesn't mean it's any worse, or any less true, or any less valid, or any less holy. It's just that he's dedicated himself, his commentary, almost all of it, to explaining the pshat.
What's shot?
Okay, I mean, pshat, the few words which are dreadfully inadequate are pshat is the literal, logical meaning of the words. But when I started out, we spent 2 hours on describing that, and it's all up there on Torah Anytime. So. Okay, and so in the land of the Easterners, like he has the whole panorama in front of him, instead of aiming at a narrow target. Now he's going and going and going. Then he came to a place, by Yar, he looked, and behold, a well in the field. And see there 3 flocks of sheep lying beside it. 3 flocks of sheep lying beside the well. Now the Torah explains, 4. From that well, they would water the flocks. And the stone on the mouth of the well was large. Okay. And all the flocks would be gathered there, and they would roll the stone from upon the mouth of the well, and they would water the sheep. Then they would return the stone onto the mouth of the well to its place. This is a picture of the customs of the place. That's what they used to do. Why did they do that, do you think? Why did they have this procedure of watering the flocks?
To imagine to keep people from using their well.
Yeah, see, there are 12 flocks. That means there are 12 healthy, strong shepherds. The rock weighs about 900 pounds. It takes a healthy group of strong men all together to move the rock, so that when they're absent, no one else is going to use the water. These flocks apparently got there early. They're waiting for the rest to come so that they can together roll the rock off the well. You understand that passers-by or other people who won't come with 9 flocks, others will come with 1 flock or 2 flocks, won't be able to take water from the well. That is the purpose of this procedure. So if you look at Rashi, this is just a matter of grammar. The verb here is, first of all, Rashi says, they would water the flocks. It doesn't say who. It says, flocks of sheep in the field. 4, from that well, they would water the flocks. Who? Which they? There's no one in the context for that pronoun to refer to. So Rashi says, the shepherds would water the flocks. The verse speaks in abbreviated language, as happens very often in the Tanakh. You have to know that the Tanakh leaves out words. Don't tell me that the copyist forgot to put it in, and that shows that the text isn't genuine, and mistakes were made, and so on and so on. No, that's not right. It's a question of biblical style, to leave out things which you could infer for yourself. Sometimes, for example, in telling a story, you'll tell about an incident, and then later on, someone will repeat the incident and say things that weren't written in the account of the incident. No, it isn't two different authors. The Torah says you're going to read the whole thing. Certainly you're not going to write, like the New York Times, take one verse out at random out of 1,000 pages and then make fun of it. You're going to read the whole story. You say, aha, if he said this over here, that's what happened, I have to go back and put it into the story and realize that's what happened over here. Not necessary to write it twice, not if the reader's intelligent. So Rashi's alerting you to a, So now he says that all the flocks would be gathered. They were regularly gathered because the stone was large. Then he quotes the word. Okay. So now, here's Jacob. He's there. The 3 flocks are there. This is the custom. Jacob is already old. So he knows these things. And he's much older than the shepherds. Watch what happens now. And again, the paragraph break here means nothing in English. Jacob said to them, the shepherds, my brothers, where are you from? Now, he is an old, mature gentleman. And these are shepherds. They could be 18 years old, or 22 years old, or 16 years old. He says to them, Achai, my brothers. Think of opening up a discussion that way. Now, Jacob's a stranger there, and they're the locals. Still, he treats them as equals. And they say, we're from Haran. Whoa, Haran, that's where he's headed. He said to them, do you know Lavan, the son of Nahor? That's his mother's brother. They said, we know. He said to them, is it well with him? They said, it is well, and see, his daughter Rachel is coming with the flock. Flock number 4. Now, Jacob says to them, look, the day is still long. It is not yet time to bring livestock in, water the flock, and go on grazing. Now, take a look at Rashi. I mean, how do you hear this? What is he telling them? What the point is he making to them?
Take care of that flock?
Yeah, I mean, there are 2 possibilities. Either they're hired shepherds. Shepherding was a very low profession. They were on the bottom of the social class, It's like migrant farmers, migrant farm labor in America today. So you're irresponsible. You're not supposed to be lazing here by the well. Water the flocks and let them go graze. Or if you own them, they're your own flocks. You're not behaving in an economically responsible way. Now she says, both of them. 7. Day is still long. Since he saw the flocks lying down, he was under the impression that they wanted to bring the livestock homeward. What are they lying down here for? End of the day. They would no longer graze that day. He said to them, look, the day is still long. The day isn't over yet. That is to say, if you are hired workers, you have not completed the day's labor. You're cheating your employers. If the animals are yours, nonetheless, it is not time to bring the livestock in. Now, do you understand why he started with my brothers? He's going to give them reproof. He's going to criticize what they're doing. He didn't realize it's in the middle of the discussion. He saw the 3 are there. They're lying down. Nobody's moving. Still, the day is big. There's lots of time left in the day. What's going on? So he wants to build a kind of relationship with them. He wants to build a commonality with them. So first he calls them my brothers. And he asks them about where they're from. And then he asks about the person who he's interested in, and they give him information. He's already set up a dialogue with them. And now, remember, he's a much older person. He says to them, look, what you're doing is inappropriate. He's speaking as an older person to younger people whom he's already set up a relationship with. They say, we are unable to, until all the flax will have been gathered, and then he will roll the stone from upon the mouth of the well, and we will water the flock. So it wasn't an excuse. It was a procedure. And indeed, let's say there are 18 flocks, and really 16 would have been enough to roll off the stone. They're not going to do that. Because the point of the stone is that no one should steal the water. So when they're all there, they can all watch each other, and they can see that the water is apportioned in an appropriate way. That's when the stone goes off. That being the case, even if you are strong. So now, while he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's flock, for she was a shepherdess. And it was, when Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of Laban his mother's brother, and the flock of Laban his mother's brother, Jacob came forward and rolled the stone from upon the mouth of the well and watered the sheep of Laban his mother's brother. So we already mentioned, maybe we have to worry about a person's attention span. Given the internet and everything, it's about 45 seconds. But to mention 3 times in the same verse that Laban is his mother's brother is a little extreme. You're certainly not going to forget from the beginning to the end of the verse that who he is. I explained to you there that these relationships occur, scores of times in the Torah, the relationships over and over again. And in the story of the blessing that we had last week, it's over and over again in the story. It means to tell you that this feature is present in the psychology of the person who's acting. This is his attitude towards what he's doing. He's not describing the familial fact, it's describing his psychological focus. What he sees in front of him is his mother's brother. That's why he's doing these things. Not because he's loving as an individual, and not because he has money, or because he's sent there to consider one of his daughters to marry, which is what his mother sent him to do. But no, he's his mother's brother. So what he has in mind is his mother. His mother sent me on this mission. Yes, his father told him to go, but it was his mother's initiation. She was the one who devised the plan. And she's seeing him in the frame of my mother's brother, and this is what my mother wants me to do to her brother. Now, the question is raised why he did this, given that it was against the norm. Also, as we just saw, this was not a stone that one person could move. And even though the patriarchs were strong and healthy till the end of their days, very close to the end of their days, Jacob is not near the end of his days, still, he's doing something which could only be miraculous. So, number one, he's not afraid they're going to try to stop him. He's not even afraid they're going to complain. He's obviously somebody very special. And somebody like that, you'd better, just put it under your hat and keep it there. And he wants to show that he's taking a place. He's taking a place of serving his uncle, serving his mother's brother. He's coming. The very first thing he does, before he even says hello, is he waters his flocks. So I think that's part of what's going on here. What's going on here. This Rashi doesn't really comment on. But the next verse is really very crucial. We'll spend a little time on this. 11. Then Jacob kissed Rachel. He raised his voice and wept. Wow. I can see the Hollywood version. Comes over the hill, the verdant valley spread out in front of him, the well, the sheep, the sun shining, the sky, blue sky, right? And then this beautiful girl, who's his cousin, beautiful girl. Love at first sight, bang, infatuation. I can see the Hollywood version, the trumpets are playing, the kaleidoscope of strobe lights are going by, right? Well, not exactly. First of all, from what I've read and heard about infatuation, weeping isn't on the menu. The normal thing is not to start weeping. Number one. And number two, let's remember that Jacob is a prophet. He's already had prophecy. He's already had God speaking to him. So I suggest to you that a prophet sees the world differently from the way other people see the world. In particular, a prophet can know the future. And this is what motivates, I believe, what motivates Rashi's quotation of the Chazal here. Here is verse 11 on page 320. He wept because he foresaw, through the Holy Spirit, through divine inspiration, that she would not enter him to burial. She would not be buried with him. The great tragedy that took place between Jacob and Rachel. Jacob wanted to marry Rachel, you may know the story, and he volunteered to work for 7 years to marry her. And then, at the feast, her father switched her older sister for her, Leah. And the morning when Jacob discovered that it was Leah, Laban said, well, you want to marry the younger one? Not here. We don't do that. Younger before the older? No. Take the older, and you'll get the younger one in a week, not 7 years, in a week. And then he was married to the two of them. Okay, he was married to the two of them. What happened? After 7 years more, he wanted to go home, and Jacob begged for more time. He stayed another 6 years till things got bad, at which time he left for home. Rachel was pregnant with her second son, Binyamin. She died in childbirth. Died in childbirth, which means that he had like 13 years with her. That's it. And she died on the way back to Beersheba. And he buried her on the road, which means she wasn't buried with him in the cave of Machpelah, where Abraham and Sarah are buried, and where Isaac and Rebekah are buried, and where Jacob and Leah are buried. She wasn't buried there because that wasn't where they were when she died. So he foresaw this, and the deeper reason is that in Jewish law, a man cannot marry two sisters at the same time, in a lifetime. Cannot marry two sisters. So, if he ends up married to two sisters, Jacob, the patriarch, says to Ramban, volunteered to keep the laws of the Torah inside the land of Israel, not outside. I've spoken about that at length. I'm not going to go through it at length anymore. Outside the land of Israel, they didn't volunteer. Only inside. Moses' parents were an aunt and her nephew. It's also forbidden by the Torah, but that was Egypt. Now they're coming back to the land of Israel. That's the place where they volunteered to keep the laws, and that's where she dies. So that's a pretty tragic outcome. Right? And Jacob sees that this is what's happening, and that's why he cries. So what he sees in her as a prophet is she's going to be the mother of the Jewish people. Here he makes a mistake. He has no clue that he's going to be married to Leah. He doesn't think that he and Leah have any relationship whatsoever. He only sees Rachel's future as the mother of the Jewish people, and he sees that it's going to be short. It's going to come end tragically in this way, and that's why he cries. Now, I want to put one more thing, because I'm leaving tomorrow night. I'm not the day after tomorrow. Tomorrow night I have a yahrzeit suit I have to go to, so I won't see you for a while. I want to show you one more thing, which is a piece of biblical style. So, he kisses her and he raised his voice and wept. Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's brother and that he was Rebekah's son. Two things. And she ran and told her father. Now watch this carefully. 13. And it was, when Laban heard the news of Jacob, his sister's son, he ran toward him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to the house. He recounted to Lavan all these events. Gee, that sounds nice. He heard the news, Jacob's sister's son. He ran toward him, embraced him, kissed him, brought us to his house. That's nice. He recounted to Lavan all these events. He told Lavan everything that happened with Esau and the whole rest. Then Lavan said to him, Nevertheless, you are my bone and my flesh. And he stayed with him for a month of days. Nevertheless, in plain English, even so, what's even so? Even so means, well, I guess I have to do this. Really, I wouldn't. It doesn't seem to be appropriate, but I guess I have to do this. What's that? He stayed with him. So look at Rashi. 14. Nevertheless, you're my bone and my flesh. Now, I have no reason to bring you into the house because you have nothing with you. Because you're not bringing. When the previous generation, when Eliezer came to find a wife for Isaac, he came with 10 camels full of riches. He wasn't worthy of inviting into the house. You come empty-handed. Who needs you? Oh, yeah, but we're relatives. So I can't just, dismiss you. Nevertheless, I have no reason to bring the house since you have nothing in your head. Nevertheless, because family relationship, I will still care for you. And he did. Now, look at 15. Then Laban said to Jacob, Is it that you are my brother that you should work for me without charge? Tell me, what are your wages? Oh, he did take him in, but he instantaneously put him to work. And after a month, Jacob's working. Then I guess it becomes a little embarrassing. And he thinks, the guy's working. I'm not giving him anything. So he asked him to name his wages. So this gives you an insight into Lavan's character. He ran, he embraced him, he kissed him. Where's the money bag? Where are the jewels? Where's the wealth? You're wealthy, your family's wealthy, I know that. You got to have stuff with you. And there's nothing. And then he tells him, I'm running because my brother wants to kill me. Right? And he had troubles along the way as well. He said, I have nothing. He says, you have nothing? Family? You have nothing. You brought me nothing. There's no reason to keep you in the house. But your family. So I guess even so, I'll hold on to you. But work? Absolutely. You're not getting something for nothing. Work. Now, a person puts faithful days of work in is earning more than just room and board. So he says to him, but you see that this is all grudging. This is an insight into Lavan's character, which remains consistent throughout his whole performance in the Torah. He is a very crass, selfish, materialistic person who also, as we'll see, Yis Hashem, opposes Jacob, his whole philosophy, his whole goal in life. He opposes that as stringently as he possibly can. Okay. I must tell you, I enjoyed this year tremendously. I suppose you can see that. And I'll miss giving it. And Yis Hashem.